Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another awesome episode of the Common Thread podcast. My name is Issa Kenyatta, and I'm joined here with my two lovely co-hosts, Celeste. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm here as well. My name is Celeste Hamre.
And I'm Moe Alhassan.
Yes, and we're excited today. Unfortunately, Amanda is actually out sick, so she won't be joining us. But like we stated earlier, this episode is all around the idea of catcalling. You know, giving out those quote-unquote compliments to girls while they're walking outside the street. And Celeste, I know you have like a lot more information in the recent video that came up regarding catcalling in Manhattan, right?
Yeah, I think today's discussion is really going to revolve around this video released by an anti-street harassment organization called Holla Back.
Holla Back.
And working with a marketing agency owned by Robert Bliss. And this video is really interesting. It chronicles a New York woman walking through the streets of various neighborhoods in New York City for 10 hours. And during those 10 hours, she had 108 instances of what's called street harassment or of catcalls. And the video sparked a lot of controversy on the internet. It was shared a lot. And there's a lot of different layers, I think, going on with this video besides just the apparent catcalling documentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think one thing that, before we even get into it, is just that when I saw the video, as me being a male in our society, I mean, I think typically we'd be lucky if you get any type of compliment. I mean, honestly, I walk down Commonwealth Avenue and I'd be lucky if someone's like, Issa, you're wearing a nice sweater today. I'm like, you know what? Yes, I am. But
Appreciate it, homie.
I know, right? You know, but I think that catcalling takes it to another extreme where it's to the point of, like you said, harassment. At what point is a compliment harassment attack?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the idea of this video is that being yelled at or called out by complete strangers is not necessarily something that anyone really wants to happen to them. And it's kind of this idea that really unsolicited conversation, comments, or remarks, is that something that even leads to something? That's my biggest question about the idea of street harassment or catcalling is, does it ever really successful? Does it ever really land someone on a date? So if it's not actually having romantic purposes, then what is the real purpose or intent behind catcalling?
Yeah.
I don't know. My question is does it hurt to try? If I see someone, if I see someone wearing something nice or looking a certain way that I appreciate, I'm gonna say, "Hey, you look good today," or "Hey, I like your hair, I like your jacket," or whatever. So it's sort of a gray area for me because it's like catcalling in and of itself is a gray area because it's not there aren't certain words that definitively are can be considered the beginning of a catcall or the end of a catcall, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so funny. And I was having this conversation with a friend earlier, and I was like, why is it on the street if someone compliments you, it's weird or maybe off-putting or we classify it as harassment? Right. But the second you get into a bar, it's a free game. So why is that a distinction when you're outside in the street versus when then you're in a bar? People say vulgar or really inappropriate or really kind of outlandish and really forward things in that setting, but it's totally socially appropriate.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not 21, so I have not been to the bar, but I don't know if it's appropriate any place, honestly. I mean, I think there's a difference between catcalling and compliment when it comes to regards of what are you complimenting me on? Let's say I was a woman in society, and I'm I might be proud of my body and things, but why can't you also be complimenting me on something else? I think, I don't know. I just feel like it trivializes it because when a male catcalls, I feel like it's not so much for I'm identifying you as a woman, or that woman as a person, but more so I'm identifying you because, I think you look bad sexually. Awesome. You look beautiful. And I feel like there's that sexual instinct to it. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Does anyone how do you feel about that? Do people catcall just because, she got a big butt? I mean, let's be honest. Let's break it down to what it seems like it really is. You don't catcall saying, she got a nice personality, homie. No,
that's true.
That's not what people say.
I give you that. Yeah, I feel like when most people catcall, it's something it's a catcall is a really out of line compliment. And most people do it because they think that they'll never see that person again. So it's sort of hey, I'm just going to compliment you or I'm going to catcall you because I'm not going to see you again, so it doesn't matter what I say to you at this current moment.
I think one question I'm really interested in is, right now we talked about catcalling in the context of a female or a woman problem. Is there a different equivalent? I think that this is something that I think has a female to male parallel as well, but it's almost less socially accepted maybe for women to catcall men, and maybe that's why I'm seeing less of it. There's this one statistic that I absolutely think is probably the most interesting thing. It's about likelihood to have affairs. And it actually, as women increase their positions of power, they're just as likely as men to have affairs with people of lower positions. So we have this kind of like stereotype of, men always cheating on their wives as secretaries, when in reality, it's not like a male thing. As soon as women are in those positions of power, they're actually just as likely to commit adultery. So I'm wondering if maybe this is like a power dynamic, and that, because I don't think, I hate to think that issues are just gendered and we just dismiss it as like a male problem or a biological difference. I think instead maybe it has to do with how maybe females aren't comfortable with catcalling and it's okay for males.
Oh, yeah. I think there's definitely a power there because, I think part of the reason why catcalling is so looked down upon is because it is a frightening moment. Like, a random stranger is talking to you and trying to give you a quote-unquote compliment about your body. And then we have this idea of, like, I think the instant fear is, like, one thing that's, I think the elephant in the room is, like, rape can be an instant fear for some people, too. Like, that's just sexual harassment at any level. I think that when it comes to women, historically, the societies have been very protective of women. Like, men have always fought to protect women, but when it comes to like a woman going out to like somewhere late by herself, as opposed to a male going out late by himself, you're like, oh well, the guy can handle himself in a sense. That's kind of like how like I could see it in my like personal experience. Like, I know that my grandmother would be much more comfortable with her grandson going out somewhere later than a girl going out somewhere later. And I think that when it comes to catcalling, it's because of the simple idea that, oh my gosh, they're more vulnerable. And I think that's the sexist part of it, right? Because once you start saying that they're more vulnerable, you're saying, like, are women weaker than men in a sense? And that's what the problem is. So when you have catcalling in reverse, if it's a woman catcalling a man, then it's like, oh, it's not an issue because it's just funny. Like, it's not a threatening
exactly.
thing.
It's humorous. I definitely agree with that. I actually have a funny catcalling story from this past weekend. It was actually with me and my boyfriend, who were around the same height, but when I wear heels, I'm definitely a little bit taller. Mm-hmm. And I live right by an MIT frat, and as we're walking by, these frat boys come outside, and they're like, hey guys, stop for a second. And they're like, wow, she really is taller than you. Like, that's like, how does it make you feel being gesturing? And it was a really awkward situation. Yeah. It was like weird, and like they were probably intoxicated, but I was like, are we being catcalled as like a group? But I think that was more just like a harassment, but definitely like a power kind of thing. We were coming in front of their space.
So I took the liberty of Google searching the definition of catcall.
Always a smart.
And it says make a whistle, shout, or comment of sexual nature to a woman passing by. So it specifies gender, and I think that one of the reasons that it's defined that way, and it's like defined with gender, is because even in the video, like the environment of where the woman was, it was one woman, and everyone that catcalled her and everywhere that she was catcalled was like a majority men surrounding her. Like, even like it was mostly men sitting down in front of the shops, in front of the on the curbside catcalling. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's defined that way. It's because women don't usually necessarily sit curbside in front of a store and crack a beer with their buddies, you know what I'm saying?
No,
or smoke a cigarette with a couple of dudes.
Well, let's flip it up even more. So what if you have two women who are attracted to each other, and a woman's catcalling another woman? Does that hold the same weight, or does it have to be a man catcalling a woman?
I think catcalling shouldn't be defined as like two women. I think that that's a little too gendered, but I think that again we're not having the same power dynamic, and I think the power dynamic of a man calling out to a woman is a lot different than a woman to woman or woman to man, where, again, like you said before, it might be laughed off or even funny because people are playing in these roles they're not supposed to fit into.
Right. So I was looking at some of the things that was being said in the video, just bringing it back to that. And some of the statements that were considered catcalls was like, one of the guys was like, you're beautiful, or like smile, or like take a compliment or something like that. And I spoke to some of my friends, and they were like, like, are some of these even catcalls? Like,
Nope.
If I go by, if Celeste walked by, and I didn't know Celeste, and I was like, Celeste, you're beautiful, or like, girl, you're beautiful. I mean, how would you take that? You know what I mean?
I think so. I have been like probably the majority of females. I've been like catcalled at or called at, and "you're beautiful." I think is very different than "you need to smile." I think that's the worst one. Being told to smile a lot. I don't know why that's a thing, but like when like walking, especially even in I had this incident in Brookline last summer where a man was like, "Why are you smiling? You have that beautiful smile. You're not using it." And I was kind of like, "Why?" Like that's such an odd comment for me, but it's a pretty common one. And the video is pretty common too. Someone yelling out "you're beautiful," I don't think that's threatening. I don't think that's harassment. I think when it's more sexual, when it's like, you know, giving you directions or something like that, of course that's. But "you're beautiful" doesn't really classify it for me. Telling you to smile or telling you to do something at all, for me, I think that's catcalling.
What do you think, Mo? What do you think?
Catcalling. I mean, it obviously has different connotations and denotations. What a catcall is defined as is a comment of sexual nature, or like a whistle, or like, you know what I'm saying? So most of the things that were in the video, I shouldn't say most, like a lot of things that were in the video were catcalls, but some of the things that were in the video were just like, hey, and then there was that one awkward moment was the guy was following her for like 5 minutes. That was weird. That's a different topic. But
well, I know one thing that a lot of my friends who from the feminist perspective would say is that, look, you know, you have this issue going on, and like, although this video did have flaws, and we'll get to that later, why is it that women have to be subjugated to just completely, because a cat call is about from sexual nature, about their body, because it goes back to the idea of like, we're dehumanizing women by saying that. And my thing is like one of the times when the compliments would be like, you need to smile or whatever, or like you're beautiful and stuff like that, it's like, who are you talking about? Because are you just talking about my physical physique, or are you talking about me? And I think that's an important question to answer.
To be honest, I don't like those comments. I think that obviously they don't even know you. They're strangers. So they're not even thinking they're going to have like interaction with you. So are they just acknowledging your physical presence or your physical appearance? That's nothing to do with you as a person, which doesn't mean that then we should be okay with and tolerating catcalling. I think it's almost this kind of weird juxtaposition where conversations are like, oh, well, it's a compliment, but why do you have to endure compliments just solely about your physical appearance from random strangers out in the street? It's bizarre. And I think that in the opposite context, I can't imagine calling out to a man I find attractive or saying that I'm never going to see again and saying, you know, like, you're so handsome. Like, oh my gosh, without trying to start a conversation or ask for a number, or not in a context where it was like, you know, meeting up or like some sort of like sphere where people were connecting for dating or something. But I think that's why. I think the difference is that you're actually not having a lasting connection. It's only that physical comment for what end? To make yourself feel powerful. And that's what I think it is, to make yourself feel like you have the upper hand in that situation. One student ambassador talked about this idea of like space, and you're entering a male-dominated space, and are they just acknowledging that you've entered it? Maybe I think that's a really interesting idea.
See, my problem is that I'm going to take this from another perspective too. So one issue that I find is that when a man now, any man, honestly, sometimes tries to compliment a woman, it's like sometimes you'll find the woman's very standoffish. Like, what is your end goal? And I think one of the references made in the catcalling video was like, can you not take a compliment? Like, can women not take a compliment? And I wanted to ask this to you guys both and get your personal opinions on it. I want to know, do you believe that's true? Do you think women today, and this is not as a generalization, but do you find that some women today really just can't take a compliment without feeling that there is something behind that compliment? Like there's some nefarious plot by this man to just get what he desires, which might be a sexual desire or like some type of desire, kind of like a con artist. You know what I mean? So I want to get both your views on that. So Mo, you can start.
Well, first, there are so many different factors to that, like the way it's said, who says it, the way they look.
Wait. The way they look.
Yeah, definitely the way they look.
Really? So okay. So explain to me what's a good look to give a compliment and someone who looks good.
There's not necessarily a good look to like giving a compliment, but like if you look suspect, you know what I'm saying? Like if you just look like.
So if I was a person who was homeless on the street and I gave you a compliment, if I shout like,
yeah,
you're beautiful, is that suspect?
Sorta.
Really?
Sorta, yeah.
Do you agree, Celeste?
Unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it is like I'm sure if you did a study and you got like people who dressed up as homeless to catcall girls, they would say that they felt like scared.
If I'm being honest, I think that's true. Like when I'm called out by homeless people, which happens, I don't know, even in Boston pretty frequently, it does make you feel. And like I'm interested in exploring like the like, you know, dissecting why I feel afraid, or like I think it's important to be honest about that fear, not deny it. But I also think it's like it's not grounded fear. It's you know what I mean. It's not a grounded fear. Like our homeless population, third mental health issues, a third veterans, a third families. This isn't really a threatening population. Probably less threatening than the random stranger you might see.
So is it a difference between like if this man is wearing a suit and tie or if this man is dressed like a hobo on the street, then it's instantly different. Like not saying that like catcalling's cool in any way. Like there's a certain point where compliment is a harassment. But like for someone to shout out to you like some of the things that we said weren't exactly catcalls, that makes a difference. Because I think what happens is that because once we start defining that, then what are we defining a suspect? Because that's what becomes an issue in this video, is that does race play a part in what's suspect? Because one thing that this video has been critiqued on is like, so this woman walked through Manhattan for 10 hours, and the only dudes that catcalled her were black men or Hispanic men. And it was like, where were the white men in the video? And this is Manhattan. So like Manhattan, I'm pretty sure is more diverse than what the video portrays. So
I actually have a total counter video or counter idea to this video. It's actually, there's already a really good video about street harassment that was done by The Daily Show. And it features an African-American woman actually walking through Manhattan. And she gets catcalled by Wall Street bankers. She gets catcalled by teenagers at a fountain, construction, like the whole slew. And they don't edit things out. And they have a very diverse amount of women. So they don't just do this idea of this white woman in the big city, like she's so much to be afraid of from, you know, these minorities, which is ridiculous. But this video is actually a lot more authentic. I think that the problem with the video, which kind of just like we talked about maybe a little bit before, takes away from a little bit of its credibility, is that they edited certain things out. So they edited out white males catcalling, which is, you know, then we have to think about the motive of the Bliss, the marketing agency. So what was his motive? What he's trying to portray? So is he trying to set up this idea, again, that it's a white woman in a big city, she's so many minorities to be afraid of? If that's his intention for this video, I really feel like it's not really a credible news source, especially when we have other videos that are catcalling New York that just show a diverse population and show it more authentically. So was he kind of going for just like a big splash and still trying to do his own kind of racist motives in the meantime? I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I can't say exactly because I can't call someone out on if they had racial motives or whatever. But I will say this, that if you're intentionally editing out a certain demographic in your edits, then it's going to come through, because no one's going to believe that that someone walked through Manhattan and the only men that catcalled, especially a woman who lives this like in their lives, they're not going to believe that it's only black men. But the problem comes when this is once again a way that media can create this fantasy idea of real life, because that will be a reflection of something. And so let's say someone didn't call that out, like didn't call out that they were all black men in the video. Like that could be someone's reality. You know, let's say that I'm a person who does not have a lot of experience talking to black men. That perpetuates a stereotype. And I think that's the greater problem here, is that when we start talking about, okay, who looks, not putting you on the spot, but like if we start talking about like who looks suspect or who looks like a certain way, it's like now we go into the gray area of, are we stereotyping people for catcalling? That's my issue. And
I think this video was on purpose stereotyping a certain set of people for catcalling.
Yeah. So all right, let's wrap it up. Let's see. So I'm gonna give you guys a piece. How do we solve catcalling in 2 sentences? Go, Celeste.
We just try to make meaningful relationships with people. It's totally fine to compliment someone when they feel safe and they don't feel uncomfortable. That's the end story of it.
Yeah.
I wish I knew a way to do that, but I think just the idea of meaningful connections and meaningful relationships that don't involve yelling out about someone's body or appearance.
Absolutely. Like when I go home today, I'm going to be like, you know what, girl, you got a beautiful personality, and I'm going to see if it works. I promise you. Go ahead.
Just text that girl. Like, I really enjoyed talking to you today, and they'll eat it up. I promise.
There was something about like the way you walked and the way you just spoke. You were just so eloquent. Go ahead,
yeah, you're ready to go.
I don't think you can solve catcalling. I don't think there's anything that's like solvable, but I think you can try to educate guys and really take a focus on families and try to teach people that, hey, there's a difference between sexualizing a woman and giving a genuine hearted compliment.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's part of it too. I mean, we talk about like respecting women, but there are still a lot of things in our society that go against that. And I think that I'm just basically beating a dead horse when I say that. But why is my issue is always like, why do we still accept catcalling as just part of society? Like, if we continue to keep in that mindset, for me, it's just like, it never changes, And so maybe that's me being idealistic and thinking that we can change catcalling culture. But like, honestly, I think, hey, we said we were going to go to the moon one time, and that was idealistic, and we accomplished that. So I think that we can change catcalling culture by making those meaningful relationships. God bless you, Celeste.
Bless you.
As well as by educating the populace and change a culture around it, So I definitely agree. Well, on behalf of the Common Thread podcast, I would like to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in. My name is Issa Kenyatta.
I'm Moe Alhassan.
And I'm Celeste Hamre.
And remember, listeners, that no matter where you come from or where you're going, we all share in the same thread. We're all cut from the same cloth. The same thread, the common thread, here at the Howard Thurman Center. Thank you and good night.
Good night.